Hello everyone, we are back again. Video number 4 this time. We have a BANE from Zez Studios. This guy's in 1/6 scale, printed with Soraya Tech navy blue and Tech Fast, that is, ABS like. And also the clear bits are Soraya Tech clear. I'll go over all the bits in a second and how you should go about prepping them. But this has pretty much just been fully, once it's sanded of course, primed in Chaos Black, this guy right here, and a gloss on top of the pipes. And that's all I've done to the model so far. This guy's pretty massive. I don't actually know the exact number, but he's probably coming out to like 45 centimeters, 40 centimeters, something like that in a 6 scale. That's pretty big. And I would have done it in quarter, but I don't have a big enough printer. Somebody that makes big printers, please send me a printer for free, please. I'll give you a really good review, please. I appreciate all the response on the last video. That was very much appreciated. I'm going to be a bit more in depth with this video and hopefully give a bit more, concise information. Let's get into the bits and pieces. All right, let's start off with the base. The base comes in 4 major pieces, starting off with the bottom here. This is mainly just going to be metal, like a metallic dry brush. There's a little bit of ooze we've got to paint here, some sort of green, but that's the bottom. Next is this huge piece. This one's got a bit of mischief going on. We got rocks everywhere, green goop everywhere, and more steel, and that just plops on like so. Cool. Next we got this massive metal Venom tank. So this is all metal, and then it's like broken open and oozing out green, so we're gonna have to do that. That's like glass. Yeah, metal, all metal. That just goes on the side here. Just a metal sheet of scrap. Just comes here. Very nice textured shoes. They'll be very nice to do. Not much to show you about shoes. Shoes are shoes. Pants. Now I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but I might be doing these in camo. Special request from Buddy. Torso, quite large. Lots of, like roid pimples and crinkles and just fucked skin textures here. I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna go about doing that. Not too sure, but yeah, we got the black singlet. Belts, metal. That should be good. We have the little portable Venom tank that goes on the back of him. Just goes straight in. And then the left arm is actually split into 3 parts. So we have a shoulder piece here. And just look at the detail on that. The right arm, is mostly together. Nothing here but skin, just pure skin, and then some pipes go into it as well. We have a band, and then just skin. The wrist for that same arm, just skin, and then this metallic plate here, and then some fabric. And then you have the hands. These are fucking huge for 6th scale, by the way. These hands are bigger than any quarter scale I've done, and they're 1/6 scale. The mask. Now there was 2 different masks. There was one with like big exaggerated comic eyes. I really liked the way these little eyes looked. Makes it look more intimidating in my opinion. So we went with this. Tiny ass head for a big ass body. And then we just have all these pieces. So all the black I just primed with this Chaos Black, Just one good coat, and then just go back over it if you notice spots, like this shoe for instance. You can see there's a bit of blue there. I'm just gonna shoot that again. Bob's your uncle, done. Now, these pipes, all the ends here are like metal fittings. So obviously they can't be clear. So I just masked this off with tape. And then I use this goo, this silly putty, just to get into like harder to reach areas. You know, just wrap it up. It's also quicker and you can reuse it. You can also, instead of spraying it, just paint it because it's a tiny amount to do, but I tend to mask more than I tend to just use a brush. It's really up to you. Now for these, so this is printed in Soraya Tech Clear. This is what it looks like once you've taken it off the printer, washed it, cured it, nothing else. And then once you hit it with a gloss, this is what it looks like. Crazy difference, right? So I'm gonna go over this, and obviously I need to make the fittings black and cover it all with a gloss to make it look like this. And then once it looks like this, we're gonna shoot this with fluoro green, probably, most likely this. But before I put that on, I'm probably going to use, I picked up this color just for this. I got a green ink. It looks pretty dark at the moment, but I'm pretty sure it'll be a lot lighter when applied. I want to put this darker green over this in a spray, airbrush, sorry. Just lightly, just to see how it looks. And then I'll put this over the top of that. Just to try it, because I don't want it to just be beaming green fluoro. I feel like that'll look a little silly. I want it to look like there's an actual fluid in there. So we'll use this darker one first and then cover it up with this fluoro. We'll try it. If it ends up looking like shit, it looks like shit. But yeah, very big importance. Gloss your clear parts. So we gloss, apply whatever the colors we're doing, allow to dry, and then we gloss it again once the colors are on. And that's how you do clear parts. All right, we're starting off with the dry brush on the bottom part of the base. And what we're going to be doing is dry brushing metallic. This silver metallic from Vallejo Game Color is what we're going to be using. I just have it on a tea towel here. And the way you do a dry brush, if you don't know, you get one of these frizzy type brushes, you get the tips of it all wet, and then you brush off almost all of it until it's kind of just leaving a little mark. And then you get your metallic and you just gently brush it on the surface, back to forth, up and down, around, and you just want to hit the top of the surface and leave the indents. So you see how it brings out that detail? It's because it's only hitting the surface. I'm now going to be doing the metal tank here. I'm just going to be using this dark silver by Pro Acryl. They do really good metallics. And we're just using a dark because we don't want it to be like the exact same. Okay, now going to be going along some of the seams, just like any part that has like a join. So like this, where this little nut is, like all this stuff here. I'm just going to go over it with this panel liner from Tamiya. And this is just like a really good way of darkening certain metal parts. Just adding a bit more flavor so it's not all the same shade. Already comes with a brush pre-installed in the lid. It's very useful. In a way to add some depth to this just large sheet metal, instead of using the panel liner, I'm going to just wash the whole thing with this Nuln oil. And I'm just going to completely lather it and then use one of these just to dab it off. All right, I have decided to give the pants a camo. Now, I have never tried camo before. What you're seeing before you is my interpretation on how to get the camo effect. So I've essentially covered bits and pieces with a silly putty, and all the black I'm going to shoot with really dark green. This one from Vallejo, it's literally called dark green. And we're gonna shoot it, let it dry, peel it off, see how it looks, and then probably put 2 more colors on. And if I don't hate it by the end, well, we won. Alrighty, we have Drakenhof Nightshade. I'm shooting this into some of the deeper, darker parts of the metal just to give it a little bit of a different tone so it's not all the same. Kind of like in between here. Alright, back to the bottom base. I'm using some special effects rust. I'm going to use a Q-tip on a wet palette. Just a little bit. And I'm just going to dab little points of interest like this little bolt here. Just going to make it dirty, nothing crazy. And just, you know, little bits here and there. Just to add some flavor. The last thing you want is a boring, just bland base. I have some corrosion special effects here, galvanized corrosion. This stuff is quite brutal, so careful how you apply it because it is very noticeable when it dries. I'm going to put just a bit. You especially want to put this on things like fixtures bolts, that sort of thing. Don't be too uniform in your application either. Stuff's got to be pretty sporadic and random, but just put it somewhere where it makes sense, you know. Alrighty, we have gory red, and that's going to be the next camo color. The last one worked out pretty well. I don't know if red's, you know, too contrasty with black and green, but we'll see how it looks. All right, we're going to do a cheeky little peel reveal now. This has been drying for like 10 minutes, so not long at all. Let's see what we end up coming up with. What do you guys think of that? Pretty cool. Is it too bright? I don't know, I like it. I'm probably gonna do like a couple of washes over this, just so it doesn't look brand new. It needs to look like dirty and worn a bit, so I'll probably like wash the entire thing, dab it off, you know, just to give it a bit more depth and weariness to it. But I think that looks pretty cool. It definitely passes for camo. We are using off-white to put on all the slime pieces first, because if we just put green over the slime now, it's going to look really dark and washed out. So I'm going to go over all of it with white first, off-white. We don't want pure white, so that won't work very well. I'm using this massive frayed brush just because I've got to cover such a large area. Right, I'm thinking of using this Scorpy green as the first color for the Venom, and I think I'm just gonna cut in all the edges first and then use a airbrush to go back over. So I can just do all this with a brush because it's tiny, but when it comes to the bigger areas, like I'm just gonna go around with a brush, the edge, and then just airbrush all the large areas like this, just to get a smoother look. All right, I ended up going over the whole thing with the brush, just one coat. As you can see, I don't know if you can see. I don't know if you can see. There's like it didn't cover very well. So Sticking to the plan, I'm going to be using the airbrush, using the Scorp green still. Using the airbrush to go back over it. And I also just masked around the black a little bit. It doesn't really matter because I'm probably just going to paint it black again. Any parts that I do touch. And then we got to dry brush the rest. But we'll see how this green looks when we put a airbrush on it. I have decided to use Koala Green Shade. This is a wash from Citadel, or I suppose I use it as a wash. I've watered it down quite a lot and I'm putting it through the airbrush just to shoot in the more sunken places of the goop, just to give it a bit more depth. So it's not just one shade of green. So I already did that side. Just gonna do this side. Moving on, we now have the fluoro. Now this is gonna make it pretty bright, I think, so I don't know how much I'm gonna add. I'll play it by ear, only on the high points. Just putting some fluoro over the Venom tank that goes on the back of BANE's back. I just put the Scorpy green already down, and I'm just going to go back over that same stuff with fluoro. So I'm just going to start on these laces. Now, because I'm doing red laces, I'm going to be putting a off-white over the laces first. Because white always needs to go under red, unless you want the red to look really washed out. Just putting a gloss varnish, brushing it on over all the slime. Just using a shitty brush and just going for it. For the laces, now that we've gone over it with white, I'm going to be using Gory Red. This is like a darker red. This is what we used for the camo on this. Now we do put white underneath red, otherwise the red won't pop. The reason I didn't do white for this is just because I wanted it to look dark like it is now. But I've already done this shoe. As you can see, when you put white underneath, you get a much brighter, much more vibrant red. And this, by the way, is the most time-consuming grading activity, but you gotta do it. You gotta do it neatly. You gotta go over the top of the lace. And you got to go on the sides, trying not to get any on the black, but you will get some on the black, so you're going to have to go back with black over the red that you got on the parts that were meant to be black. And that's the painting life, baby. Right, moving to the buckles on the shoe. In the render they used silver, but I'm going to be using bronze from Pro Acryl. Pro Acryl's bronze is very nice. So is their copper and their gold, actually. This is yet another super time-consuming, laborious process. So I'll probably just show you the first couple and then just skip ahead. But there's nothing really to this other than just taking your sweet ass time. Rotating it around. Making sure you get the little bit inside the top of the ring, and always making sure you get like the outside of the ring. Otherwise it won't look complete. Right, this is the finished look of the buckles. I think the bronze goes really nice with the red. And now we're going to be dry brushing the body, kind of like how we did earlier, but it's kind of faded, barely even visible at all. So I'm going to use this charred brown. And this is a really dark red brown. And I'm going to dry brush it kind of over where the creases are. Sorry, the light. Kind of over where the creases are, but more so where there's big cuts and grooves. I'll just make them stick out a lot more. Alright, it's got a little bit more texture and flavour to it now. What I'm going to do now is take this red watercolour pencil and just brush over all these stitches. Now when we put the satin varnish over the top, it's going to kind of lose a lot of its luster, but there should be a slight faint bit of redness left. And then these really pronounced stitches at the back here, I'm actually going to go over with an off-white first, and then actually paint, not with a brush, not with a pen, but with a brush. I'm actually going to paint red over these to make it more pronounced. Next we are doing back on the base, just like the dirt and rock pieces. I'm going to be using the charred brown again, and I'm going to stipple this on, just using a shit brush like this. So basically just getting a little bit on, getting a little bit out, and it's similar to a dry brush. but you leave a bit more paint in and you just stab. Just kind of all over, random spots. Next, we're going to do dry brushing. I'm going to use a small one, even though it's a relatively big area. I just don't want to get any on the slime. So to be more controlled, I'm going to use a smaller brush. And I'm going to use this BANE Blade Brown from Citadel, just for the dirt parts on top. And then I'll use greys for the outside, I think. I'm now going to use this same trashy brush and Stonewell Grey just to do the rocks on the outside. And I'm keeping this part of the model pretty simple and low detailed. You're mainly looking at the slime, so it's not that beneficial to go super crazy with the dirt. Now, the reason I use a grey when it comes to doing rocks is just to add that white highlight on the edge of each jagged piece. And so through nothing but a little dusting with a bit of grey, every single, angle on that rock has now been highlighted and it looks way more detailed now. Now you can go in, if it was like a different base and it was like mostly rock and dirt and it didn't have all this slime over it, you could do more. You'd add like a couple extra layers of colour and maybe even spray some washes around, but I'm not doing any of that for this one because the slime will just overpower everything. So we're going to leave it at that. I'm going to call the base pretty well done. Let's see how it looks. Metal piece, and I just gotta do some stuff with this tank and yeah, the base will be done. So I gotta put a zenithal highlight now on this skin. I've wrapped the whole base in glad wrap, pretty much so I can assemble it how it is going to sit. I'm just going to use this white scar from Citadel. I don't have much left, I might run out. But basically I'm just going to shoot some white kind of from an upper position down, covering most of it, just hitting the skin, nothing else real. I'm going to hit everything else, but I'm only aiming for the skin. And then we can start on skin. Now I'm going to do the white on the face. I'm just using an off-white from Vallejo. Getting a pretty small brush. I'm just going to cut in the edges. Right, now I'm grabbing a bigger brush just to go over this again. So we go over it, we cut in the sides, just meaning we do the really hard edges. And then I went over it one thin layer. As you can tell, it's very streaky. So we get another layer going, and it's important to keep in mind when trying to get a smooth finish on shit like this is to put on like several thin coats rather than like fewer thick coats. So the paint's pretty thinned down on my little wet palette here. It's been sitting there soaking up water. So I'm just gonna take that nice watered down paint and just cover this. Right, so starting with the skin tones. Now, instead of doing what we did last video with the pink Warlord purple, whatever it was called, because this is like a very grotesque, like ugly skin, I'm gonna use a brown rose to start. Right, we have a very complicated step next. I am now been thinking, how am I gonna make this model like stand out from others? How's it gonna be a bit more detailed than the usual? And I'm thinking adding more visceral detail under the skin. So if you've ever seen somebody that's like roided up, they have a lot of blisters and like bumps and like little red spots under their skin sometimes, especially where the muscle stretches a lot. So I'm thinking I'm gonna spray some of this Carberg Crimson really, well, not super thin down because it's already a shade, but thin down a little bit, and then I'm going to put it in the airbrush on a really low PSI, just enough that it's shooting out like little blots, not a consistent spray. I'll show you what I mean. It's probably watered down a little too much, to be honest. Yeah, it's a little too fine. I'll mix it up a bit thicker and we'll try again. Alright, phase 2 of making the skin detailed, we're targeting veins. I got this pretty dark blue, almost purple, but definitely still leaning to blue, watercolor pencil, and then this green. It's pretty similar to the goo color, a bit brighter. And I just started on this hand already, but basically, very lightly, I'm going over the very tops of the veins. And then in some parts, not all parts, just some, we're also putting green just to the side of that vein that we drew in, just to give off the illusion that the venom is pumping through his veins. I'm not too sure how deep I want to do this, how like pronounced I want the veins to be. The more, you know, thick, girthier veins, I'm obviously going to go a lot harder on, but we'll see how we go. Okay, here's the big one. We have the main flesh tone for the whole thing, using medium flesh tone from Model Color Vallejo. This is mostly thinned down, like mostly thinner. I want this to be very, very thin, like maybe 20% paint, 80 thinner. I'm going to be putting this on in multiple thin layers because we don't want to cover up too much of all that work we just did, putting down those foundations for the, you know, all that stuff under the skin. We'll see how we go. Right, we are now moving on to the 3-stage wash for the skin. Now, I'm doing a different wash this time. Same colors, but I just went out and bought these specifically for this. So we go, sorry, in this order. So we go yellow, let it dry, then satin, then let that dry. Then we do red, repeat, and then blue, repeat. So the 3 washes is just to add flavor back into the skin. Now on this particular skin, we've already got quite a lot going on. And it's probably not even necessary, but I just want to try it just to see if it makes it look more lively, even more. So the yellow, especially after we've just added that last basic skin tone, it can kind of wash the skin out a little bit. So the yellow just kind of brings it back a little bit, just to add some flavor back in. And then the red, that just gives that nice, I think the red's the most important one. It just adds that really nice hue of warmth to the skin. And then you have the blue. And the blue, I'm not entirely sure what you would necessarily call the effect, but it does have a noticeable effect by the end. So we're going to go through, hopefully not make the mistake as last time of putting too much pigment in the cup. So I'm just using these little disposable little cups here, and I've got it about half full. I've already mixed this up. This is flat yellow, by the way. These are all just flat matte Tamiya colors, not the glossy versions, not the transparent versions. Now, if you're worried about how much paint you actually have in there versus water, we're not really measuring this out. It's just kind of going by eye. So after you mix it, you know, push it against the side. And if it clumps up like that on the side and doesn't dribble down like immediately, it's too yellow. You got too much paint, so just add more water. Mix it again. We're getting there, but I still want to add even more. Again, last time I learned the hard way. If you have too much paint in there, you will put irreversible hue on the skin. You cannot remove it or fix it. So just put less on and then run it again if you have to. Don't put too much on if you can help it. Alright, now we're looking a lot more weak now. So this is like 95, 97% water. That's what you want. Alright, let's see how this goes. So basically you want to do this really quick as well. You don't want to linger. You want to cover it completely, just the skin. let it sit for a second, and then you're going to grab a paper towel, dab, 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 have everything ready. I've already got, I've got all my stuff here already. I've got little makeup sponges. These are really good for getting into hard to reach places because they suck up really well. All right, let's go. I got a new brush, by the way, just a flathead standard from Citadel, just for this. Now, the results aren't supposed to look necessarily super obvious, but there should be just a slight little tint of yellow in everything now. And we didn't put too much on. That's the important thing. We didn't put too much on. We did a good job. That's a success. That means if we need more, we can just put more on, and that's all there is to it. I'm going to leave it as is. I don't think it needs more yellow, to be honest. I'm gonna really give it a working with the red though. I think that red's gonna give us a big difference. I'm gonna be using an alcohol spray from an atomizer when I get to the red, and that's going to split the red and make it look like blood vessels, but I kind of want to use it in certain parts, I think. So I'm going to seal all this with satin, leave it for a bit and come back to it to do the red. We are moving on to the red wash now. I've already watered this down. As you can see, we're quite diluted. Okay, this is the alcohol in our little atomizer, and I'm just going to spritz a bit of this on the back of the hand. Okay, that was way too much. I'm going to have to be very careful not to touch that at all now, because that's just going to rip the paint straight off. So I'm just going to set that to the side. Alright, we are on to the final wash. This is the most important wash not to fuck up. If you put too much paint in the blue wash, you will have a irreversible just blue smear to everything. So make sure it's not too much paint in there. Make sure it's watery as. Look how much water I added into this one extra. It's almost full. I'm going to test it on a piece that's not as visible first, which is this wrist piece, just to make sure it's doubly make sure that it's not going to be too strong of a color. And when it comes to the blue wash, you want to take more off than you usually would. Now I know you're usually taking off what seems like everything on the other ones, but you especially want to take off more. So I want to get my dab, fully dab it up. Because this blue, it will destroy the look of the model. Any decent amount of paint on there. Right, we are now adding a bit more dimension into the crevices and the muscles. So all these massive divots here, just all of them. We're going to be shooting a watered down Agrax Earthshade. Now, this is a brown wash. You can use, I think, Reichling Flesh Shade is another one. Similar to this, but it's more red tinted. There's a lot of red on this model already, so I'm just going to use this brown, watered down, because we do not want to lose any of the freckling or anything we have here. So, as you can see, if you do a before and after, there is definitely a noticeable difference in the deepness of those crevices now. And that's kind of what we're after. You don't want to blast this and you don't want it to be super visible. So it's just tinted the insides a bit more. Because if you blast this, it's going to have a more cartoony look. I mean, we still want it to be like semi-realistic. So that's pretty good, and I'm going to do that to the rest now. Right, we're going to be going over the fabrics now on his clothes and stuff. So I've pretty much just gone back and re-blacked everything that I oversprayed the skin on. And as you can tell, once you add, you know, the contrast of the clothes back, everything just looks so much better. So, did that, I did this. Just black, just very carefully. I always cut in first. So I'll get my brush and I'll go in very, very carefully around the whole thing, around the whole skin. And then I'll just fucking blast it. So just make sure you be very careful, especially when you put in as much effort in the skin as what we have been. You don't really want to fuck it up. We're probably going to use this to dry brush, just very, very lightly, just to add some flavor, because there's not much. Like, it's just black. I'm now using this charred brown just for a dry brush on the leather part of the gloves, just so it's not the same as everything else. Now going to be dry brushing some of the metals with a silver. Doing the metal on the knuckles now. It's supposed to be silver, but I'm going to use copper. Moving on to some of the fittings, I'm using dark silver. I'm going to use the same metallic for the belt thing. I'm going to use a bit of bronze on some of the fittings now. Moving on now, we're doing more of the same fittings, but this time with chrome, just to spice it up. Now using silver, I'm going over the big piston bits. Using some Agrax Earthshade, I'm just adding a little bit of tint to the fingernails. I tipped some more of the Earthshade into a little tub and then watered it down. I'm just going to mix it. And I'm just going to use this to try and dirty up the mask a little bit, not too much, because it's just pure white at the moment. Now just going over some of the areas that need to be made white to then have red put over them to simulate red light. Now moving on to that red, using Scarlet Blood from Vallejo. It's a really bright red. We'll try the eyes first. Right, we're finally moving on to the tubes. I'm gonna be using this green ink from Vallejo first, and then I plan on doing the fluoro after, but we'll just have to see how it looks. We are now moving on to the fluoro green for the pipes. Now using a gloss to go back over bits that are supposed to be lights, like this. Okay, a bit of a weird and random one. I got this acid special effects from Vallejo. And basically this Batman cowl, I'm just leaving it black because I can't really be fucked, to be totally honest, is lying face down right here. Alright, just very quickly, this is what the pipes are looking like. For the tips, I'm just getting this bronze. And with that, we're done. BANE from Zez Studios, completed in its entirety. I think we did a pretty good job. I'm a lot more happy with this one than I am with the 2B we did last video. This is actually her sword that I'm using here as a mic stand now because I ruined the model. So she's actually sitting up there. Sword broken off, fingers amputated, such is life. I'm pretty proud of this. It turned out better than I was expecting, actually. I'm pretty sure all our ideas that we put to the test worked very well. The skin, the tubes worked out pretty good. The camo worked. That was another first thing we tried that worked very well. And the colors. This is probably the first model where I've actually, instead of trying to recreate the render to the best of my ability. I took a lot of creative liberty with the metal colors, the colors of the shoes, the pants, just the metal fittings, all that type of stuff. We took a lot of liberty there and changed things around. And I think we got a pretty good result. If you liked what you saw, just watch the next one. I'm trying to grow this thing as much as I can. If anyone's interested and you want to buy it, take it off my hands so I can pay for some of the resin costs, because this thing cost me like two 2-liter bottles worth of resin pretty much, and it comes up to like $160. Anyways, there is a pretty exciting lineup of statues I have coming along. The first teaser for the next statue, I'll just name drop, is going to be Miles Morales from East Sea Monster. I already have him printed and primed and ready to go. Well, I haven't primed him yet, but he's printed. And then after that, I have the next lady model. And hopefully it only takes me a week to knock out this Miles. If you have any critiques, leave them down below. I do read everything. That'll be it for today. See ya.